One.
It is one step closer to recovering.
Hey everybody, greetings, and we are back. True Love Movement Tuesdays, Brother Jack, here
That's
at
right.
WBOK, our local black-owned radio station, 12:30 a.m. Y'all can join us.
Hey guys, State Treasurer John Schroeder here.
Y'all can join us on the radio at 12:30 a.m. or you can join us online right here at Facebook Live. We want y'all to join in the conversation by calling 504-260-9265, 504-260-9265. Today we're talking about resistance. Yeah.
Right on.
Right on.
It's your cash. Take it back.
WBOK, New Orleans. WBOK,
Cool. Hey.
New Orleans.
I'm on this one. The pink.
The following
All right, get ready. Thank you, Brother Shaq, for setting us up good.
It's been a long time. I'm a little bit rusty.
Just a little bit. Like riding a bike, brother.
Riding a bike.
Like that long intro. Can't get it up a little bit, you know?
Right. The whole song when you need to hear that. All right. Good evening and welcome, family. Welcome here to True Love Movement Tuesdays at the 4 o'clock hour on WBOK 12:30 a.m. Real talk for real times. I'm Brother Shaq.
And Mama Fiyah.
For True Love Movement Tuesdays. That's right. It feels good to be back, Mama Fiyah. How you doing?
Man, it feels great. Like I was saying, it's like riding a bike, you know?
Yeah.
Get back into it, get back into the swing of things.
Right on, right on. And shout out to our Facebook Live family joining us on the Facebook True Love Movement Facebook page. If you want to see what's happening, please log in and like us on Facebook, and you can see us here in the studio. Also on www.wbok1230am.com, as well as the WBOK 1230am app, available for Google Play and in the App Store. So, here we are.
Here we are.
How's it feel?
It feels good. And I actually had a really good day today.
Right on.
Had some really good sessions. So I'm in a good space, a good mood to be able to share, about mental health and wellness for our people, political education.
Right.
Making mental wellness a priority for our people specifically.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, where have we been?
That's a funny question. We've been everywhere. We're doing all kind of beautiful things. Yes.
Where have we been? I know we hadn't been on the air in a long time.
It's been a long time.
I think maybe January. I had a chance to visit the Misbelief show here recently, a couple of weekends ago.
That was good.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out to the Misbelief show, DC Paul and the gang. Right near our old time slot on Saturday at 6 o'clock. And then you were on just the other day on Sister Kendra Joy's show on the Move.
Yes.
Talking about the film. What tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, Silence is Compliance is the title of a short film written and directed by Dominique McClellan.
Okay.
And I played a counselor. I was acting in that short film, and it was a good experience. Yeah.
Right
and
on.
The showing was on Saturday.
Okay.
And it was good. It brought to light so many different viewpoints about sexual assault and violation. And I was saying on the panel discussion how I was so glad that the writer put therapy in to the film. You know, he didn't have to do that, but he did as support and help for something of that nature.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the right thing to do.
That was the right thing to do. So I was excited. You know, it had some technical difficulties or whatever, but that's how it is when we put something out there
Man.
for the first time. Sometimes it can be rough, but I think it's just going to get better and better and better. Shout out to Silence is Compliance by
Right.
Dominic McClellan.
Yeah, every time there's always some kind of a technical difficulty kind of a thing.
When you put something out there, you know, and we think it's not perfect, but it's perfect just the way it is,
Right.
you know, and it just evolves and gets better and better. So
That's great, man.
Yeah,
And then y'all had that great panel discussion after, like you were talking about.
yes, and maybe we can put the link in onto Facebook Live so people can see that panel discussion. It was really good.
Right.
Yeah, moderated by Gia Hamilton, and had some good people who understood sexual assault and the policy wise, and how it impacts people. So it was a good conversation.
Plus, this is Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
It is.
Right.
I mean, but we should always, April, but we should always be aware of.
Well, we should always.
Yeah, and be vigilant, you know,
Right.
about when, you know, it happens right in our own homes and in our own families, and teach our daughters and sons how to, you know, not be a victim in the best ways possible, you know, to look around and look for what it is we need to take care of ourselves and preserve ourselves.
Nor to be victimizers. To not
Right,
be victims nor
definitely victimizers
victimizers
as well.
you
You're
know.
right about that, Brother Shay. There's
That's
a lot we
cool.
gotta learn.
Right.
Yep.
Definitely. So yeah, man, I'm glad to be here. We're glad to be here with you all, family, on the I guess the drive home for some of us. For some of us, it's the drive home.
It
So
sure is. And we're excited. I want to thank WBOK 1230 AM just for the opportunity for True Love Movement to be in this space again.
definitely
Feels like home.
feels just like home.
Yeah.
And shout out to our Facebook Live family. We got Sister Shantice Denise, we got Charlita,
Oh,
your dancing partner.
yes.
We got Chelsea Pierce joining us and everyone.
Sister.
Yeah, man, this is a good look, man. I'm glad, you know, to be here. You know, on this side of the booth for a while, back in the old spot, the old chair.
Yes, definitely.
You know,
So how was your day, Brother Shay? How's your day been?
my day's been great, man. Been taking advantage of this weather.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, the weather is gorgeous outside. I hope you all have had the opportunity to get out there and spend some time and get some sun. You know, that's been the bulk of my day. We kind of worked outside today, you know, and I was glad to do it. You know, I'm very encouraged and inspired by the brothers and the work that they're doing. Very insightful. Really taking it seriously, Mama Fiyah. And so we had some sun rays out there with the melanin popping, as folks say.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you all the time. Anytime I have a chance to thank you, but also publicly, thank you for the work that you're doing with our brothers. You know, I know it's very intentional, very specific, in getting our brothers to understand themselves first and foremost, but then understand Black women.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, y'all do a lot of work around that because, you know, people come into therapy and they want to talk about relationships.
Yeah,
You know?
right out
That's
the
why
gate.
they come, mainly because
talk about
maybe a bad relationship they're in, or a bad relationship they were in, or you know, a lot of different ways to not look at yourself.
Right.
You know, they want to discuss
Right.
that, but we always turning in on doing the self work and getting that self together.
That's right. That's right. I mean, that's probably the number one thing folks want to talk about is what's happening in relationships with other people.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a trip because in the relationships with other folks, we often don't see us. We see the other people.
Yeah.
And, you know, we know why that is. But it's very encouraging, Mama Fiyah, because I had a brother today talk about how he was actually running some things by someone else. And he was saying, man, me doing this is really, really dehumanizing.
Ding, 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 ding.
He was saying that, and he was saying when he was talking to a brother, and I told him, I said, I'd mention that on the air. I wouldn't mention his name, but I said, I'll mention that because, you know, he's not the only one that's reflecting right now. And he, you know, he's he's an indicator, like his brothers again being very, very reflective. They're looking at their behavior. They're looking at how their behavior is impacting other people. And what he and I discuss is what many of us talk about, is that this is the way we were all brought up. You know, we were brought up to think of women as possessions.
Come on, Brother Shay.
And that, you know, that they should be controlled, and that they were really there for our pleasure, and that was really their whole purpose and function. And to not really see them as whole and complete human beings who were like us, but just, you know, this is what we should be doing, you know, a conquest or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I shout out to that brother and you know, all the brothers who are really like sincerely doing the work, because that was the theme of another time I spent today with brothers, that whole sincerity piece.
Yes.
You know, and you know, even getting back to the time when, you know, I was a sincere person, when I wasn't trying to manipulate or trying to you know, extract from someone or extort someone or violate someone or whatever. Like that's huge.
Yeah. And that's everything. When we talk about True Love Movement, you know, the true and True Love Movement is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes, sincerity is important, but like telling yourself the truth mainly.
Right.
And then telling everybody else the truth. And you know, people say human beings lie and they lie and they do this and that, and it's like, do they have to?
Right.
Do we have to? Even with little white lies and whatever. Ooh, like just
white lies.
Walking and talking and standing up fully in your own truth.
Right.
Yeah, and so yeah, telling yourself the truth and telling everybody else the truth. That's the goal, Brother Shay.
That is the goal.
And being like walking, talking in your true self and being authentic and also sincere, genuine, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for doing this work. We know so many brothers that could utilize that service, Brother Shay.
Well, you know, of course, you know, we're here for that. We're definitely here for that, because it's not just for the brothers, it's for all of our people in terms of, you know, building real community, so that our community is you know, on the path to wellness.
Yes, we need you well.
In a way that we've never been well before. You know, like we've never been well in America. That's something that's not always considered.
Yeah.
And I know we're very adept at True Love Movement of connecting every single ill that black people face. Every single ill that black people face can be directly or indirectly attributed to racism.
Say that one more time.
Every single ill that black people are faced with or struggling with or doing whatever they're doing with can be directly or indirectly attributed to racism.
Yeah.
Every single one of them, Mama Fiyah. There's not a one that doesn't apply to.
And so I oftentimes hear people say, you know, we keep blaming the white man and we keep blaming it. And so how do we navigate that kind of response?
How do we navigate?
Yeah, when people say, you know, we always blaming the white man for our difficulties and we got to stop blaming the white man and stop doing what, you know, how did we navigate the response to that?
Well, I think that's a great segue to today's topic, which is the resistance.
The resistance.
You know, the resistance to acknowledging the truth of what has happened to us as black folks in this whole experience. You know, resisting really being real about, you know, just the whole situation. We're kind of coming at the present time and we're saying, man, you know, look at our people cutting up and, you know, our people don't want nothing, and, you know, kind of ignoring the things that shaped our people. And it isn't simply just around race, Mama Fiyah, because I know that there was actually a group of brothers who were doing some work, and they were talking about an incident that occurred, and it involved a woman, a prominent woman in that family, and the issue was happening between the woman. The woman was essentially being violently violated and by another family member, and then a close relative of hers took issue with the fact that was happening and had issue with the person who was violating her. But those two had problems, but no one ever addressed the actual woman that got violated. So there's this invisibilization that happens pretty routinely with with regard to black women or women who are now politically designated as black, and we still don't really see them. The other folk around the issue may argue about it or fight about it or fuss about it, whatever, but it's still the person who was most impacted is still least visible.
Yeah.
In the socialization, there's some resistance to really acknowledging the humanity of actually what's happening to the person, not centering it on the black woman in this case, who's actually being violated in that moment. So there's all kinds of resistance.
Yeah, and then the resistance of blame too. I mean, it's like we want to hold someone else accountable, because that was the question too about navigating how the problems black people face all stem from racism, and how do we not blame white people for what it is that we do, and for what it is that has happened to us. And I think that question lies in every black person's heart, especially when they know our history and connects it to the truth about racism and the truth about what they call white supremacy. And we don't need to talk about that. We talk about that all the time with True Love Movement in True Love Movement, but it always pops up. It's like the elephant in the room, people call it, the big elephant in the room. Everybody's dancing around a certain subject and talking about our people this and our people that, and really trying to blame it on our people. And I know we personally need to move, I personally need to move away from blame and get more into action. And of course, I walk it like I talk it and all these different things, but more action, more support, more guiding, more understanding and understanding, overstanding, and all that stuff. But just more support and humanization. Humanizing our people for real, and not just we are into rehumanizing our people, but humanizing all of our people, even the streetwalkers on the corner, right there by the office, even the brothers who have addiction issues, and the young people who whatever, just actually saying, okay, these are our people, and we've all been hurt by these systems.
And so you're saying that there's some disconnect between the other people being as human as us. Like
there is a disconnect between our people, right? True Love Movement, we stay right here.
Right.
We stay with our people. We oftentimes stay right here in America, or we stay right here in New Orleans as well. We do have a issue with humanizing our own people. We the worst sometimes at it, because our standards, what are our standards? We're looking up to be like right, quote unquote, and it's like white a lot of the time, and so I was talking about blame and trying to move away from blame, even though you made a statement, a pretty profound statement that says that black people are in this condition we're in because of racism.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so that makes us want to blame the white man, but then where do we move from there?
Right. I mean, I guess that's one level, and then how we frame blame. Shout out to Sister 2. She's joined us now, talking about Sankofa. We got Edvasi Digadat also joining us, and several other people coming in the room. Thank y'all for doing that.
Thank y'all for joining us.
Let some other people know as well that we're on. I know people weren't expecting us to be on. We kind of just, boom, here we are.
Here we
Tuesdays,
go.
True Love Movement Tuesdays. And we had done some True Love Movement Tuesdays podcasts from the house, and they did very well. They're on YouTube. They're on the True Love Movement Our YouTube channel. And so here we are back on the air again today, talking about resistance, or the resistance.
Yes.
And Mama Fiyah, I think with regard to blame, I think we can frame blame in the way of identifying what is oppressing us, like what is really what's happening to us. You know what I'm saying? Because we want to say that when I hear you talk about blame, or even me thinking about blame, it's just that it ain't me. It's not me. So we don't want the culpability, because something in us may understand that something has happened.
Yes.
And so it don't sit right with me for you to say, or for anyone to say that this is all my fault. It don't sit right, because even though I can't articulate it, it feels like something happened to me, that I've been victimized by something, and there's been no redress for my victimization. You know, like we always say, all of our people are survivors.
Yes, we
all
are.
Black folks are survivors.
Yeah. And that we all need some type of intervention, and that's okay. We all need some support. We all need, you know, mental health, to be able to think about mental health and think about wellness. You know, maybe not so much everybody needing counseling per se, but we all need to think about this stuff and work through the ramifications and the impact of racism and white supremacy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it ain't just saying, you know, it was the white man, because it was. But we don't even in saying that, because we can't really articulate the whole thing.
Yeah.
It ends up sounding, I think, to some folk like it's a cop-out. Like we're using this proverbial, invisible, hidden hand white man that has done something to us. And then there's the other thought that that's just not real.
Yeah.
That's not real. Ain't nobody doing you nothing. This is 2019. You are free. You
Come
can
on,
do whatever you
Brother
want to
Shaq.
do. You can live anywhere you want to live. You can live next to white folks if you want. You can, you know what I'm saying? You can work with white folks.
Old restaurants that they go to.
Yeah, like we've had, quote unquote, they call that progress, I guess. You know, anything that you, as you advance toward whiteness, that's considered as progress, you know, because that's some of the residue left over from the momentum of the civil rights movement, you know, getting civil rights as opposed to human rights, and understanding the necessity that in the course of history here in America, as we're trying to get reacquainted with our humanity, that course of action in terms of the civil rights being a movement was in fact very, very necessary to get us to where we are here today, which we are still working our way to our humanity, and now some of us are trying to get something from, you know, white folks in the form of, you know, I'm not really sure what we're trying to get, but we're still not yet where we have come to understanding our own power, and that what we have or what we need is already here within us.
That's right.
You know?
That we are what we need. And so I think people can get stuck in blame. People can get stuck in it's the white man, and just stop there.
Yeah.
You know, instead of the action component of it. Now, what do we do?
Right.
You know, and what's feasible for our descendants, you know, a path and a strategy for our descendants also to follow. And this reminds me of all those beautiful shows we had, like the Black Sit show, and, you know, beautiful shows that we had with strategies and formulas in mind. And that has me also thinking about resistance and what that looks like. A healthy resistance, but also how resistance can be negative and unhealthy.
Or resistance for the sake of resistance, because then we have a lot of folk that just may be, as the old people say, contrary. You know, they just don't want to do nothing or go along with nothing, because, you know, that's, and believe it or not, at least in my estimation, that whole contrary spirit is really just a mimicking of the dominant white culture, where in the dominant white culture, has a presumptively adversarial relationship with everything, even itself. It has a presumptive adversarial relationship with everything and everyone, including itself, which is why it is at its core so violent, because everything it presumes is in opposition. And it creates that whole dichotomous thinking that if you're not for me, then you're against me. And so that way it's always trying to force you into submission, or co-opt you in some kind of way to get you to align with it so that you can serve it. But it doesn't really benefit particularly people of color, and it don't really help poor white folks either. You know, but it's you know, and again, that is the system or the ideology of racism, you know, when it's really, really understood. And so much of the things that Black people do in terms of health or mental health, physical health, mental health, or any other behavioral health kind of thing is a response to that. Yeah. It's a response to, it is an actual resistance to the conditions permeated by racism, white supremacy. It isn't an original behavior. It is in fact a response to that.
We think of oppression, depression.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we think, I think people are shameful or embarrassed to say that they're depressed. And it's not about saying it, and it's not about waddling in it. It's about accepting it.
Right.
Because once you can accept the thing, you can fix it. Once you acknowledge that it's real, then you can fix it then. But if we just keep pretending that, no, I'm not depressed, and you know, and people come into the office all the time and they say something like, I'm depressed, but I don't have any reason to be. Or, you know, things are going okay and I just don't know why I'm so sad. And oppression is a very, very heavy-handed feeling. It's like you're up under a weighted, hot, you know, terribly prickly, you know, system that's just laying on you, and there's no way to go. There's nowhere to go, and it's enough to make our people depressed. It's enough.
And it's a reasonable response to oppression.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other part of it. I mean, the amount of along with blame, the amount of shame, you know, the amount of shame that our people experience for just enduring this oppression, to me, is why it's very important that we make the invisible visible, so that we can identify the source, so that we're not, you know, walking through life thinking that something is inherently wrong with us or inherently deficient with us, or that we are weak. I mean, that right there is the main culprit for the stigma that's associated with mental wellness for Black people, is because without the historical analysis, the thought is that, you know, man, ain't nothing wrong with me, I ain't crazy. It's like if we really do examine in great detail, and I mean really take our time with how we come to be in this condition, the real history of the founding of America, and where those people, those of us now who are politically designated as Black today, where we were then, of course we have the challenges we do in this society that was set up by white people for white people. Of course we do. We weren't part of the development, the healthy development of this. These systems and institutions weren't set up to benefit enslaved Africans nor the descendants of enslaved Africans. The racism that's baked into the founding of all of these systems and institutions was normative behavior then, and it's still normative behavior now, carried out by the dominant culture. These are you know, historical facts. And so while yes, we are totally connected to Afrofuturism and where we're going, and that's synonymous with really being a historian, because there ain't no cutoff. There ain't no that was then, this is now. This is very much so alive. We are just evolving from that particular time. So it's a continuum. It ain't a then and now. It's an actual, like, we are here in this moment, right here, right now, because of what happened before.
Yeah,
All
that's
of
right.
us.
And that's why Sister Two, our beautiful Mama Two, said Sankofa. You know, that our past must inform our futures, that we have to know better so that we can do better, so that we, you know, all these different phrases and cliches that we use is to actually put those things into action and look at our past to strategize for our future.
Right on.
So the internalization piece, you know, is big too. If we don't look at our history, we don't look and say it's all because of racism, we think it's because of us.
Right.
You know, we think we're bad people. You know, I never forget that a lot of people start off there. They start off with, I'm a bad person, you know, and then you break down why and what happened and all these different things, and they start to really see how they weren't given, you know, we weren't given equity, we weren't given justice, we weren't given rights, basic human rights. And so that will make you feel like that's what you deserve.
That's
you
right.
Get what you deserve.
Yeah, and I want to go a little bit harder on that language, Mama Fiyah.
Okay.
It's not that we weren't given, we were deliberately denied.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
It's like, and so when you think about someone deliberately denying you human rights.
And that's the part, right? That switch, and I want you to continue there, but that switch makes us see that we're not the bad person.
No.
Right? That understanding helps us see
Right.
that we're not bad. Because if we say we're not given, we must don't deserve it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the language and the linguistic racism is so hard because we've all been socialized like that. And, and listening to our people talk about it, they tell you that tells you, that and you are the person who I know better than anybody who is a great scientist of self-talk.
Yes, I am.
I just can really understand the impact of self-talk and how developing your own self-talk, it's far beyond the scope of positive self-talk.
Yes.
This is far beyond that. And so shout out to you for that, as well as oppression, depression, and coining that.
Yes.
Because we're talking about things that True Love Movement has arrived at after many years of listening and working directly with our people and really looking at this thing. This is our lane. And so the idea of how we talk to ourselves is informed by how we've been socialized to think about ourselves, our individual selves and our collective selves.
Yes.
And the collective selves are the ones who really informs the individual, because that's where the momentum comes from. That's how we're affirmed or reaffirmed through our developmental years. So we get ideas about who we are, and then we end up losing, or not losing, but giving up sincerity because we're trying to gather something. We start feeling the holes that dehumanization has put into us. And so we're looking for something to fill them, and we learn that we can fill them if we can extract from other people.
Ooh.
So then we get
that power position.
Yeah.
That power understanding.
Which is a mimicking of white culture, because
Yes,
the
it
idea of
is.
racism or white supremacy has become so strong and made itself so strong at the expense of dehumanizing black folks, that it wasn't strong or great or big to begin with. In order for it to be or to present itself as superior, it had to make the other inferior.
That's the only way.
Because it's the same amount of power that's out there.
Yeah.
It's just that they were able to, by taking our humanity, they gave up a lot of their own too. But by taking our humanity and setting up systems and institutions in their favor, they enjoy the things, the spoils of the conquest, the booty, as they say.
Oh, come on, Brother Shay. You're going hard right now. Greetings. I just want to take a couple of minutes to say that you can join in this conversation
That's
by
right.
calling WBOK Solution Hotline at 504-260-9265. You can call in and have a conversation with True Love Movement on your ride home.
That's right.
At 504-260-9265.
That's right. Live.
Yeah, we live.
And it feels good on a Tuesday,
Yeah, it feels good to be here. Feels like we home, Brother Shay.
Not that Saturday was a bad thing, but 5 years of the True Love Movement Hour on Saturday here at WBOK was beautiful, and we built wonderful relationships with you all, and we're grateful for that opportunity. And so to be here on a Tuesday now, you know what I'm saying, on the ride home, of our folks are winding down for the evening, to be here FCC regulated, so we can keep it, but we can do it on the radio, so the whole family at this time and the present time can listen. We hope we can spark a conversation on your way home.
Yeah.
About
just
these topics.
And it's okay to just think about these things regularly,
Yes.
What I love about True Love Movement is it's not about current events.
No.
All of these events line up with the truth about the systems that we're under.
Right.
They all are the same. They're all displays and proof of the system that we talk about. And then, I love True Love Movement offers solutions
Right.
as well as things to do, things for us to do and for us to consider.
And a lot of the things to do, though, that's kind of also where there's a point of resistance, Mama Fiyah. At least in my
Always,
experience and
yeah.
historical, people are very, forthcoming with that question. Well, just tell me what to do. I don't really want to talk about it so much. We can talk about it for so long, but we're not really doing nothing. We just talking, You just want to talk about it. Everybody just want to talk. And so then that comes up inevitably about the doing. And I want to spend just a second on it. I know our sister Sonia Maria was asking about the spirit of just being contrary. And we're going to get back to that. We may even be able to weave it into this part of the conversation, but as it relates to the action, because it is a spiritual thing now I'm talking about here.
Come on, Brother Shay.
With regard to the action, like there's a misunderstanding. We did a show like this several years ago where we talked about power and quote unquote soft power, but we were really laying out very well the misunderstanding of the relationship between the masculine and the feminine.
Yeah.
The misunderstanding of the relationship between the masculine and the feminine. And we're talking about energy here. We're not exactly talking about people as much as we're talking about archetypes, but mainly energy. In that there is a dominant thought that has been propagated by the dominant culture that masculine and feminine are opposites. That masculine and feminine are opposites. Or on a level lower, men and women are opposite sexes. This is a dominant thought that's been propagated by the dominant culture. And it is in fact an untruth. It is a flat out lie. But what it has done though, the way it's permeated in popular culture and in our social interactions, is that we are approaching the idea that something that is feminine in terms of energy is just really not only in opposition to something that's masculine, but that it's less than.
Right, it's weak.
It's weak.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
undesirable. And what seems to make it weak and less desirable is the fact that it is a process. It is process oriented, that it has steps, it's multifaceted, and that it isn't, by contrast, it isn't a singular event. And so what has happened in so much as the way people think about masculine energy and feminine energy, that masculine energy is in fact action. It is some type of movement or action or some physical thing, in that is in fact the most desirable solution or solvent agent in the course of whatever the challenge is. You must take action, and something must be actionable to be valuable. And totally dismisses the process of the feminine, which also is a matter of balance, because we know the yin and the yang are halves of the same whole. They're definitely not in opposition. You know, True Love Movement is very clear about that. Of course, we teach that and we operate off that. But the dismissing of the value and virtue of feminine energy, and I find that in the course of doing that, and that being the normative sort of behavior and the normative dominant thought, when it comes to working through processes, and the greatest of solutions are sustained, at least in my experience and our estimation, I think they're arrived at through processes. You know, even when we're talking about something as basic as science, scientifically it moves through a process. So all of it's like we have a knowing that our best understanding, and I mean intellectually and emotionally, come through or come by way of a process, in the same way that we come into the world by way of a process.
Definitely.
It may be
But it's
spurred
an
on
event.
by an event.
Right.
That is spurred on by an
for,
event.
For the masculine,
Yeah.
quote unquote, part, but it's a process in, creating a human being. Yeah.
Right. And so, but the mother gives birth after, a time, and then here we are. And then the mother is feeding us on that first day, whether or not the father who started the event is physically present or not, the mother is still there nurturing.
Yes.
So that's
still the process.
A process, and that's a life and death process in terms of sustainability for real.
Yep. Basic needs.
So there is a resistance to recognizing processes as actionable things, thereby being worthy of our time and care and consideration. And so then when it comes to energetic things like that, we attribute those to either men or women. So that's how come if a man pounds his fist on something, or if he hollers, or if he says whatever, then that seems to quote unquote spur along action. If a woman says, well, let's think more about this, let's talk more about this, let's try and listen to other people and their ideas, there's something about that doesn't, it's not as seductive. And we've been socialized for it not to be seductive. But in fact, I think we could learn a lot and get a lot closer to our humanity if we would lend ourselves to the divine feminine in the process of moving through a process, arriving at something that we can collectively get our minds around and hearts around, as opposed to the imposition that often comes with simply having the masculine thought in the absence of the feminine.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Brother Shaq, and thank you for bringing up this component. And what it also brings up, right alongside racism, right alongside white supremacy, is patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to resist just saying white supremacy and racism without including patriarchy as well, as we're discussing oppression, depression, as we're discussing, resisting, quote unquote, power.
Right on. And if we introduce patriarchy in its rawest form in America, it would be incomplete to say that as far as black men are concerned, black men have a very partial and limited, and I'm going to say in quotations, benefit from the fraternity of patriarchy, because in this country, in America, this is the white man's world. So this is white male dominated patriarchy. Any patriarchy that a black man may demonstrate, benefit from, utilize, or whatever is simply a mimicking of the dominant culture, and that he still doesn't have, he may be in a position of power, but as a black man, he doesn't have the same power, nothing in the realm of the same power as his white male counterpart, who essentially founded the nation, wielding his patriarchy. Doesn't make it any less, in terms of, for black men, it doesn't make it any less damaging, particularly for black women, because the only people that a black man in America can oppress is black women and black children.
Yeah.
Those are the only people, whereas the white man oppresses all people, including other white men, white women, and everyone else. And so that is I guess a big P and a little P. Not to
but
take,
it's still a P.
but it's still a P, and
Let's
that's important. And our brothers should be clear that we do have a very partial and limited conditional membership in this white man's patriarchy, so long as we hold in place the arrangement that keeps the subjugates black women. That's throughout history.
Yes, definitely, and I think we should be careful with the terms that we use, because I think about power. I think about power in the black community, and if we don't really look at patriarchy, even if it's a little p, if we don't look at it, then it'll still be unbalanced.
Right.
And it's an issue, and that's what I love about the work that you do with the brothers, because it's teaching them to look at themselves when it comes to patriarchy as well.
That's right.
Not just white supremacy and racism, that it's all one thing, that it's, it's multifaceted, but it's one big hand of oppression.
It most certainly is, Mama.
Yeah,
Fiyah.
yeah. So, again, I'd like to just shout out to everybody. We got some callers.
That's right.
We're so excited. Yeah,
Right
let's
on.
go
It's
for
been
it.
a minute. Let's get this first caller. Thank you for holding. What's happening? Welcome to True Love
Good
Movement Tuesdays on
afternoon, sisters.
WBOK.
This is Brother Dr. Ntangwalizi Sandika, Baba Sandika. I'm in Houston, Texas. I'm a native New Orleanian and a Katrina evacuee, and used to be a frequent participant in many conversations at WBOK. I've been away from that for a while, but I have been listening with a great degree of interest to your dialogue and your conversation, and was learning a lot about it. And you struck a nerve when you hit the patriarchy card. For me, I said, oh, I've just got to say something right here that I hope might raise new questions in the conversation. So I want to share
Right on.
this and ask your response to it. Are you all still there?
Oh yeah,
We're
absolutely.
here.
Oh, okay, yeah. I have been one who has held for a very, very long time that part of the problem with patriarchy and ownership of persons, people of color, women, etc., is a result of the thinification of people which is deeply rooted in capitalist thinking. Certainly the commodification of life itself and goods and services, the chattelization of Africans into enslavement, where our humanity was destroyed and replaced with the materialization of life itself. But part of the problem, too, is a theological problem, because when we go to church and sing all our hymns and all of our songs, the deity is always he. The deity is always him. I, for one, I always say her and she, because I think the deity is not anthropomorphic the way we are, but we have genderized deity to the point that I think we subconsciously believe that all power is vested in maleness, because that's a part not only of socialization, but the way we have been theologized to believe that God is a male.
Correct.
When you look at the Old Testament, it is such an aggressive deity that is always almighty, destructive, punishing, and killing the adversary. Fortunately, the New Testament inserts the notion of love that brings a degree of balance to it, but still, the dominant way we think of and talk about and engage in conversation about deity is very, very patriarchal. And of course, in the African church, we see a lot of the accusations of sexism that have been dominant in the African American church for a long period of time. Not the same sexism that we see in capitalist America that dominates the totality of society. But nonetheless, we still see the way that males have limited male participation in the church, our most valued institution. So I think that we've got many barriers to be challenged about how we realize the humanity of all of us, and starting with deity as she and he, the Sophia concept, if you would. But you have to be careful when you use the term feminization, because so many people then start that homophobic tendency then emerges, where they think what you're talking about is demasculization of black men when you discuss patriarchy and feminization of the deity. But somehow we've got to help brothers get beyond that problem, so that we can all understand that the feminization it does not mean demasculization. It simply means realizing the full dimension of our humanity, that we all have been made with multiple characteristics of each of the members of the species, and it's all right for that to be the case. But when you materialize it the way the capitalists have done, and then convert it into patriarchy, then it becomes oppressive, becomes dominant, and it creates that false sense that males are superior to females, which we know is not true.
Come on,
because we don't carry life, we don't continue life, we contribute.
That's right.
But the female of the species continues the species itself. So I just want to put that in the mix. The conversation I find very interesting. I frequently, when I've been in the classroom, I'm a retired professor now, I frequently try to help my students understand this problem about how we have materialized life itself and how we have converted the deity into such a patriarchal figure that it takes a lot of deprogramming for us to get back into our own humanity. So I just wanted to share that thought as you all are engaging in the conversation.
Thank you.
Right on, so Barbara. We appreciate you listening and dropping that in there. Thank you.
Dropping those jewels. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to make it a point to see if I can tune into your show from time to time. I'm here in H-Town, and we have a very large African American New Orleanian community. In this city, we just call this New Orleans West.
Right on.
Cool.
Cool. But many of us will be coming home for the fest, and then for Dillard's 150th anniversary in early May. Okay. So we stay connected. We're not disconnected from what's happening in the city. But I'm glad to hear that we're going to keep WBOK in our own good hands, and I hope that you all show continues to be a part of the mix. So let me hang up and listen and enjoy the rest of your show.
Right on.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Bob. And for you and for anyone else who is listening, if you would like the True Love Movement Tuesdays to continue, please let the station know, as it is in transition of being sold, that this is something that you would like to hear more of. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I mean, he said that feminism does not mean demasculization.
Correct.
Right? And that's beautiful. And we've said that time and time again, but not necessarily like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved how he asked us, somehow we have to tell the brothers, and somehow True Love Movement is how. The work that Brother Shaq is doing with the brothers is so precious. It's a very one-on-one intensive, precious coaching into our best selves, coaching into our highest selves, where we consider patriarchy, we consider femininity or feminism, not feminism, feminization, but femininity. Mm-hmm. We consider masculinity, and that they're not against each other, like you said earlier, but they make each other better. They make each other stronger. And less limited.
Yeah, and also, Baba, thank you. I actually have a book that deals with that. That is almost wrapped up. Coming soon. We hope in time for Will Manifest, which will be happening in May. We've got the dates. It's the May 24th through 26th, and there is it's a resolving. The title of the book is called Resolving Rape Culture, and so in it we deal with exactly what you talked about, the political and theological aspect of how these things have, hold each other in place with regard to capitalism and what have you, and the whole historical piece around that.
Yeah, Brother Shaq's a very deep thinker, and so RAPE is an acronym. Resolving Rape Culture. RAPE is an acronym, and it's of course you got to come to the workshop.
Come to the workshop about the book to get what the acronym is for. But we do deal with what Baba was talking about earlier, and we dig even deeper into just historically how it was done. We go a step further in just mentioning that it was done, but we talk about how it was done. And of course, the connection with capitalism and the childization of African people is a huge part of it. And the idea is that we can make these things visible, so that in the process of making them visible, we can actually deal with them, as opposed to simply talk about how unfortunate they are, or how difficult they are, because
we've been there. We've been there for the last.
Stayed there.
For many decades.
Yeah.
And there's been a resistance to doing the work.
Yep.
And I know Brother Shaq, you talked about action and all that, but I'm talking about doing the self-work, changing ourselves on a micro level, where we can come together and change it macro level. But there's a resistance to that. And so we're talking about resistance in many ways today.
Yes.
We've got 2 hours, but we got 1 more hour to kind of shine a light on resistance and what it means to us. And I think there's a lot of resistance to doing the work.
Definitely a lot of resistance to doing the work, and not to be critical of our people for being resistant in doing the work. Our resistance in actually doing that kind of work is just an indicator. It's evidence to the degree that we've been dehumanized. It's evidence that we have no idea what we're capable of. We don't have a sense of our own power. And so much of the historical experience for those of us who are now politically designated as black has come through imposition. And it has come through the imposition of racism. And as far as our people are concerned, if we're doing any imposing, and that would be, with regard to, gender inside of the black community and the mimicking of the white man's patriarchy, it's just been simply that the way that black folks change, or the way that black folks move through their experience, happens through imposition, that it doesn't happen without. And so if you are conditioned, a good brother and myself, we were working today on really getting down to not just the language, but the difference in the spirit of motivation, and inspiration.
Yes.
And much of the language the brother was using was, he was saying that, I gotta stay motivated, find things to motivate me to do blah, blah, blah. And what I was able to help him realize that what he essentially was saying was that if something doesn't act on me from the outside, then I'm not likely to do anything, which simply, shined a big light that said he hasn't yet interrogated what his purpose is for being alive. So he's nowhere in the realm of, creating something that is rooted in that purpose, but rather looking for something to stimulate him from the outside, because our body, our spirit wants to do something, so we can do it either through inspiration or motivation. And we know there's a long, lengthy history in America of motivating those of us who are politically designated as black today to action, whether it be some physical action or some other kind of action. We yield to, and we know religion is a big culprit in that. We yield to something external, something that isn't us. And there are certain dogmas and doctrines that really reinforce the idea that we are nothing, that we are empty, that we are, shortcomings, we are lackful. Like these are the messages that are given to us either directly or indirectly through our socialization in our very formative years as part of our cultural experience here in America, that again happened as a response to enslavement. That was even part of the deliberate programming of enslavement, the whole creation of the black preacher or the African preacher and what his functionality was on the plantation, and how that again has become very traditional, very familiar, and very much so the course of how we socialize ourselves without the very physical presence of the white man, but yet still his shadow, if you will, in our normative behavior.
Yeah, shadow, but also just an internalization of what of white is right. Yeah, I got you, Brother Shay. So the lines are still open, 504-260-9265, 504-260-9265. Thank y'all for tuning in to WBOK 12:30 a.m. for True Love Movement Tuesdays, Real Talk for Real Times. We are also on Facebook Live on the True Love Movement page, True Love Movement Facebook Live. So thank you, Brother Shag. You always seem to know what to say to bring it into focus. Resistance, the resistance. I think the way we decided we were going to kind of open up talking about this was something that you coined, resistance living.
Yes, resistance living.
Resistance living. And we all been there, whether you recognize the phrase or not.
Right.
We all know what it feels like to live a life full of tension. Where, I can give an example that you work Monday through Friday at a job you hate, just to look forward to Friday and the weekend, and then hate it again between Monday and Friday, and really feel like you can't do anything about it.
Right.
Yeah, resistance living.
And that's a very, very dismal proposition that is, by and large, part of the normative American culture.
Yeah.
And it's particularly detrimental for black people, and generalizing black people here, because we're coming from a legacy of lack, and so our ability to earn money in this capitalist system has always been a point of stress and contention. We've never, as black folks, we've never had a problem getting work until we were to be paid for it.
Come on, Brother Shay.
There's never been a problem in the history of America with quote unquote black folks getting work until we were to be paid for it. So, there's a lot in there, and we're gonna dig a little bit deeper into that on the other side of this break. So we want y'all to hang tight with us. We'll be back for the second round of True Love Movement Tuesdays. I'm Brother Shaq.
Mama Fiyah.
Here on WBOK 12:30 and Real Talk for Real Times, family. Come on back with us. All right.
What y'all say, Facebook Live? Are we still on?
Yeah, they're with you.
They're with me?
Yeah.
All right. So that was the first hour, and it feels real good
This
to be
is Dr.
back.
Takesha Charles Davis, President and CEO of the New Orleans East
I'm
Hospital.
drinking my water. What is that?
I'm getting you some more, but they only have one cup. So
You
we go
actually
good.
paid attention to the
All right,
beat of
okay.
your
So
heart.
how was y'all day today? Is there any, I want to read some of the comments. So y'all been leaving some wonderful comments.
Causing us to dance, laugh, and
Here
just
we
feel
go.
excited about life. Our heart does the same thing. It keeps our organs
So-
alive by pumping blood through the body, allowing us to move and dance to the
Mama Michelle Muhammad says sexism is embedded in all religions. It says, oh my goodness, thank you, Mama, for sharing that. Sueri Aisha, my sister, she says, and excuses and a lack of understanding. That is why political and spiritual education is imperative. Wow. Yes, spiritual education, that's a tough one because, you know, a lot of the work that we do at the office has a spiritual component to it. Just because we're talking about the alignment between mind, body, and spirit, you know, and so we do have to talk about that. We have to talk about spirit. It's not a bad thing because what we've learned in America is to keep God and state separate. And so how can we do that when we need to align mind, body, and spirit in order to have wellness? So, Sueri Aisha says, Sankofa, if we continue to address the what, which is the initial and essential Eurocentric question, and not the why, the way of Eastern thinkers, people of African descent, we will continue the destructive space. Okay? Sonia Maria asked, please speak on that spirit. Must be the contrary spirit. Some just have a controversial, contrite spirit. That is very true. How many people we know with that contrary spirit? And whenever I've seen it, it's always been about bitterness and hurtness somewhere in their historical past, their own personal historical past. And you know, when we talk about hurt people, and then we don't really specifically talk about bitterness, but there is, you know, a tap into a certain sweetness of joy and of life and happiness and understanding. And people who are bittered or embittered are people who haven't felt that tap in, haven't been able to. And listen, it's been tough. You know, our life in America has been very tough, and I don't blame our people when they are bitter. I really don't. I can make a choice if I want to be around someone who is bitter or not. I can make a choice to do those things, but I'm not one that says, oh, they're bitter, they wrong for that, and alienate them or isolate them. I choose to, you know, either give my own sweetness to the situation or don't mess with them at all until they're able to tap into that. Because look, you know, there are situations where I have been bitter, and it was just a part of my journey. It was a part of what I had to learn. Because in order for me to know joy, you know, I had to know what bitterness was. I had to know what that felt like and what it looked like for myself. So shout out to Gumbo Tapata is here. Ranika S, hey queen. Sonia Maria is still here. Sueri Aisha, thank you queen. Michelle Seymour Muhammad, thank y'all for being a part of this first time together. And we're going to continue True Love Movement Tuesdays, but we actually just excited to be here. I see Blake Anthony is watching. And so we're taking a break right now, but we'll be right back on the radio as soon as possible. And what we're talking about today is the resistance. And we just finished talking about like resistance living and what that means and how we've learned that that's the box and that's how we're supposed to move. Like we're supposed to go to school, go to college, find a partner, get married, have a baby. Well, we didn't talk about the job situation. Get a job, get a mortgage, you know, have a baby, 2.5 children, and live life that way. And that's just the box of living. And, you know, a lot of the time it's resistance because we forget about our dreams. You know, we forget about what is calling us, our purpose. We forget about all those things and just, you know, live in a box. And once we realize that there is no box, that gets tough because, yes, there are systems, and those are true. It's true. But I think living life on purpose and really tapping into what our purpose is, we realize that the systems have only been designed by another human being. That they don't. That's not a natural law. What's wrong, Brother Chef?
I was looking for a little chorus.
Here we go.
That's all right. We back on.
Yeah, we good. Thank y'all.
Do what you can.
Thank y'all for sticking around.
Right on.
So we were talking about the box of the systems that we're in, resistance living, the box of
Yeah.
resistance living. Come on.
That's right.
Come on.
Right on. All right. Welcome back, family, to True Love Movement Tuesdays with Brother Shaq.
Hey, Mama Fiyah.
Right here on WBOK 1230 AM, real talk for real times like we supposed to be. I guess Mama Fiyah.
Yeah, it feels good. Feels
Back
real
home,
good.
black home. So we were talking before the break, and shout out to everybody who's joined us on the Facebook Live. Simply like True Love Movement on Facebook, and you can see us here live in the studio. And of course, joining us on your ride home from school or from work or with the family or just wherever you're going about town. We are grateful that you've taken this time to join us. So many things that are happening, so many things you could be doing, but we are honored that you have chosen to ride with us. And so we got another little bit of time in front of us, another hour to go. We can kind of unpack some things, Mama Fiyah.
Yes, we can.
What you say?
Yeah, I mean, we're just on the break, was continuing to talk to Facebook Live about resistance living and what we can do. Resistance living is like working to pay bills,
right.
Living from check to check, working a job that we can't stand, forgetting about our purpose, forgetting about our dreams and goals, and just going for kind of what's easier. It's a lot of times it feels like.
Right. And what we've been told to do. I think there's a thought in the general, rearing of people and raising of black folks that black people are supposed to, work very physically hard and, B, not get a lot of gratification and enjoyment out of the work that they do.
That's right, Brother Shad.
And that's just how it's kind of supposed to be.
And there's no purpose but to blood, sweat, and tears and
right.
that kind of thing, yeah.
And listen, we get that, and there's no contempt for that either, because the other part of resistance, Mama Fiyah, is having compassion for our people.
Yes.
That's why the knowing of what we have experienced collectively and historically is critical to you arriving at being able to honor and lift up your own humanity, and then subsequently being able to honor and lift up the humanity in your brother and your sister, recognizing them as yourself, only comes after you do the work that we talked about on the other side of the break, that our folks are struggling with or resisting the actual doing of that work.
Yes.
You can't sidestep that work.
You can't sidestep that work, and that work will get you completely out of living, doing the resistance living thing, right? When you dig in deep enough, you identify your purpose,
right?
And then that way you can't suffer, quote unquote, because that is also another archetype of black people being the martyrs and the sufferers and all those things. You won't suffer anymore living inside of a box that when you realize there is no box.
Right.
Ooh, like I was just thinking about the systems, because the systems seem like they're this big, huge thing, and they even seem like laws, like
that's part of it.
We gotta have capitalism because such and such and so. We've gotta have a justice system because if that and the other, we have to have a government because. But when we realize, when we do the work, the internal deep self-evaluation, we realize that the only laws that we have to adhere to are the natural laws.
That's right.
And that's tough. That's tough because, hey, it's kind of like the Matrix.
Right.
We're a part of the Matrix, but then can see that the Matrix is not real.
Well, for the religious folk who or religious folk, or either folks who are biblically adept, there's this idea or concept of being in the world but not of the world.
Yes, there is.
In that's again, this is, I think everything I think the disclaimer that we didn't say earlier that I think is poignant now at any time of any conversation that's had, amongst those of us who are now politically designated as black, whether we're on the radio, whether we're in your face, or whether we're having this conversation wherever we're having it, on the phone. The disclaimer should be, and I'm proud of myself, Mama Fiyah, for not cussing. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
But
you're doing good, brother.
Yeah, I'm proud of myself for not cussing. But there again, we should be gentle with ourselves, because we are trying to communicate all these different thoughts and feelings and experiences through English. And, I don't know that our people really stop to think about how much of a disservice that is for our people. Mm-hmm. Because this is the language spoken by the people who put us in this condition, who overpowered us, who actually conquered, who did that, who have kept us subjugated. This is their language. And so we don't even know, a great many of us, what our native tongue was, let alone do we speak it. And if we do speak it fluently, we have a very small and narrow community with which we speak it. And I'm saying all that to say that we are trying to take these large, brilliant, sort of, imaginative things that are responses to our oppression and everything else that we can come up with, and funnel it through a very narrow, unsophisticated language that is really stolen from other languages, and then appropriated in such a way that it even, not only did it steal from other languages, but it takes those words and then flips the meaning. And so the language of shout out to our great ancestor, Baba Emile Labat, for first opening the door and really
Rising Power King,
sparking my curiosity about understanding words in this language and etymology and all that, as he instructed us many years ago, and pointed out that it was right there in your face. He said, man, English is angle. That's what it is. It tells you what it is. It's the language of angles, which means it's not straight.
That's right.
And so there's no wonder that there's confusion and even resistance, Mama Fiyah,
yes, there is,
to trying to have these kinds of conversations, because we get frustrated, we get angry, because we can't understand one another. We can't understand why this is happening or has happened, and we walk away feeling disgusted as opposed to liberated. It's not our inability to master this language.
Come on.
It's
not our language.
It's not our language.
Yeah.
And there's no way that you can really authentically, as a person who is now politically designated as black, who's traveled and journeyed from being an African and indigenous person to this planet, there's no way that you can take those billions of years of experience and funnel it through this language. It's gonna make you mad. It's gonna make you crazy. It's gonna make you sound crazy. You know what I'm saying? And then it's also going to help people to, sometimes not listen to you, not be able to respond to you. So yes. I want to put that disclaimer out there saying that we're trying to talk in that language, and we also imagine in that language.
Yes, we do. And so there's a huge limitation on that. Mm-hmm. And, and we got to be careful. This is just a little aside for our grammar police. People who go around and talk about you didn't use the right there, and you didn't use the right
there now.
And these things, like, cool off a little bit, because this is not our language, for one, and right. it's confusing on purpose.
Yes.
For two, I think about my little girl. I have my daughter, and she always fusses about English. She'll say, "Man, see, math keeps it straight. Math keeps
right.
it right there. Like, it's so easy, Mama. But see, English, oh, it's so hard. Why they got all the different words that sound the same, but they mean something different and something?" So we talk about it all the time. Like, baby, this is not our language.
Right.
And it's okay if you don't want to master that.
That's right.
Like, do your best to articulate what you're trying to say. But, love really is the language that we speak.
That's
I
right.
talk about me and my children in developing, like, how to connect, how to stay connected without words,
right.
Like not using so many words. because we don't realize what we say sometimes, you know. Well, like Emil Labatt would say, spelling. We don't even be realizing what we say. Be careful.
That's right. I like that you always lift that up in our home about, you know, the feeling behind it.
Yes.
You know, and
feeling.
And that there's a there's a tendency, the dominant white culture, as we've all been accultured to here in America, no matter how, you know, black we are or pro-black we are or whatever it is, we've still been largely influenced by the dominant culture. We've been schooled by the dominant culture. We've been educated and socialized within the dominant culture. We've been certified to uphold the dominant culture.
Come on, Brother Shad.
So even with all of that, we still, you know, have to resist, you know,
yes,
the way the dominant culture flows from our lips through all kinds of linguistic, you know, racism and all these other things that we don't necessarily intend. But one of the things that when I was raising just now about the you know, contrasting your emphasis on really listening and feeling what was being said.
Come on, Brother Shad.
Is that
you feel me?
That you feel me? That is the intellectualization of the language. So that the wordplay or how the you know, the grammar is constructed and the way it tickles our ear is supposed to dominate the spirit, you know, by which it was said. And that's a big thing. But that's what the white dominant culture teaches us, that, you know, this is what I said, and just take it for what I said. And, you know, our Africanness or our indigenousness is like telling us, nah, I need to see how you feel. That's part of the reason why I resist the heavy-duty texting and emails and digital communications. Of course, I use them. I'm conforming, I'm compliant, and all those kinds of things, but I prefer not to, because I really do want to feel. I want to look in someone's eyes. I want to hear them. I want to hear how it sounds in their voice, because I want to really experience. I want to be with them when they're talking or communicating to me, because so much gets lost in translation.
Yeah, and that body language, that eye contact, all of that are ancient ways of communicating.
Right.
We don't have to use this young, ugly, confusing language. And so when I'm seeing people, a lot of the time I'm listening. I'm doing a lot of listening, because our people are not heard.
Never.
You know, historically, our people have not been heard and listened to. So that's a gift that I can give. But I always ask, what do you mean? Because we will say things and use certain vocabulary and certain words. And I ask, you know, what do you mean? I ask that a lot. And so we sit and just in describing, you know, going deeper into the description of what they really mean. And a lot of the time we're not listening to each other, y'all. We kind of just like letting stuff pass us by in one ear and out the other. Right. We're not spending enough time listening and dissecting so that people can go deeper with their, you know, descriptions and even descriptions of their feelings. You know, we need to resist just moving so fast. Moving fast in our conversation, if we're really trying to connect to people and really try to get the understanding of the feeling, for one, and that's relationships between people, but deeper into our own understanding of our feelings. We don't know how to articulate the specific feeling that we may be feeling. We may say, oh, I'm angry, but you actually might be frustrated, annoyed, you know, irritated. And so getting a deeper understanding of our own feelings, and sometimes there's not a word for the feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yep.
You know, that also has to do with sometimes that we have the, you know, some of the violence that we experience, you know, because when we want you to feel us, you know, that's what we say, I want you to feel me. You might even need to feel these hands.
Uh-oh.
You know what I'm saying? You need to feel me.
Come on, Brother Shaq.
And I think the thought is that if you really felt me, that you wouldn't say what you're saying to me, or you wouldn't be doing what you're doing, or you wouldn't be in the same spirit that you're in if you could really feel me. And it sounds to me that at its very base is that that's our illumination of the disconnect between us, and that disconnect is simply a mirror of the disconnect between us and our very own humanity. It's just illuminating that. So what we're in the process, what I'm saying and seeing in our time here, Mama Fiyah, is that we're in the process of, or we're in the time of like the seeing, like the really looking at what has happened. We're not really yet in the realm of fixing it and solving it just yet. We're still reeling from 249 years of enslavement, 154 years thereafter, off the physical plantation with no intervention, across the board. So we're still reeling from that. I think we're just getting glimpses of, man, look at what they did to us, or man, look at what happened to us, and we're still in that time.
Yes, we are, Brother Shay. You're right about that. Mm-hmm. And so I want to open up again the phone lines. The solution line at 504-260-9265. Y'all can give us a call and let's think about solutions. The solution line, 504-260-9265, WBOK, 1230 a.m.
And I would like to ask our listeners and our viewers, as they are contemplating solutions for overcoming the various degrees and levels and aspects of resistance in our own lives that keep us from, our humanity and our highest self, I would ask them that they would consider whatever their solution that they would like to pose, that they would integrate or look at the process by which that whole thing lays out.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That and to not be very quick to try to say, well, we got to do this, because we hear the spewing of black folk need to do this, black people just need to do this, all black people, you hear that, and that is just an indicator of someone who's really not clear about all that black people have experienced.
They didn't do the work.
Right. And this idea that these very, very hurt people, in the ways in which they re-stimulate the trauma in us and further damage our people, sometimes with good intentions, sometimes with sinister intentions, because there is a thought that, a lot of times we like to play the role of the oppressor, Mama Fiyah. We want to see what that feels like. We want to try on his shoes and his drawers even,
Come on, brother.
So we can see what it is to walk around like that. And so, that's something to consider too, as we consider, solutions to confronting the things that we are resisting. And just like that, Mama Fiyah, look at that. There ain't no resistance in this phone line. We give thanks. Thank you for holding, caller. What's happening?
Caller, you're on the True Love Movement Tuesdays.
I'm not getting audio. Do you have audio? Caller, are you there? Hello? Caller?
Hello?
Okay, you're on now, caller. Thank you for calling True Love Movement Tuesdays. What's happening?
Yeah, I was calling about the process that is going on in terms of where the culture coming from, and through the gentrification process, there's not enough credence being given to areas or locations where the culture evolved from. Is really a historical site that should be preserved, such as area like Greytown, where jazz music came from, out of Lincoln Park and Johnson Park, and turn of the century. But we act like that does not exist within the reality. Ellis Marcellus comes from out of Greytown. Civil Morrell come from out of Greytown. Bone Silver Hydale in Greytown. Alan Toussaint come from Greytown. Joy Talbot was in Greytown. Many of the people that played and dealt with jazz through the turn of the century comes out of Greytown. But yet, in the revisionist mindset and the new preparation for the 300-year celebration, people were deceived into believing that all of the culture comes out of Tremaine. People being prepared and to accept that reality when they went in that theater performing arts for European Americans, and therefore when the black community rose up, they gave us that little bitty corner, which they call the Tremaine Center, and then they created Hunter's Talk to pacify the black community. So therefore, the whole process has been in operation from, say, Skiro through Moon Landrew to ultimately do what his son has did, Mitch Landrew, that got all of us running around here playing these games that we are supposed to be cultural dancers and culture this, where the Europeans have took all the Katrina money to take and fill up all of the French Quarter and all of downtown. They use steel studs so that there don't be no deterioration, no termites or anything
That's
that
right.
have been going on to the people that they put on payroll for years that have never been on a payroll to take and miseducate the people as if Treme is the spot of all of the culture, all the existence. There's and culture pimps in the city that's pathetic. The biggest of all of them is Clint Davis over there with the guy doggone jazz fest. I remember that boy came to me over there at Umoja Incorporated with Willie T and Earl Turford talking about doing a black festival after he came from Woodstock. And then when he came back, that's when he started talking about doing a jazz festival. We no longer have a jazz festival. We got a white heritage festival. Jazz is only used as a means to take and deceive the black community.
Right.
The whole process of what they put there at Congo Square, or what they call Congo Square, because it's really Congo Place, the square part goes to PG Beauregard Square. So therefore, in that reality, they don't want you to know that that was an open-air slave market.
Right.
And now that ran from where the so-called municipal auditorium is all the way to Bayou St. John.
Wow.
That's where Bayou by the Bayou come from. Escape from the fortification next to the Bayou by the Bayou. The black pirates was taking you from pirate land over towards Florida, where the black people was living free under Spanish control. So therefore, there's a lot that we need to know about our heritage. And before I get off this phone, brother, if you give me 1 second,
Yeah.
I have to change this myth about people talking about slaves started New Orleans. No, sir. John Law got the contract in 1717. John Law came and set up the company of Senegal to be able to bring slaves to Louisiana. Senegal is in Africa.
Right.
In order for them to build those castles, it was the Africans on the coast working with the Europeans to build the castles. It was the Africans on the coast working with the Europeans, capturing the Africans interiorly and shipping them over here. When they decided that they were going to set up Louisiana, it was people from Africa that came here along with the Europeans to set up the Louisiana territory to receive slaves. The first slaves did not get here until 1719. It was set up as a slave colony and a penal colony. So the first European derelicts that was put out of jail, prostitutes, and etc., was sent over here in 1720. That's why we got a Bourbon Street. So we need to understand our origin. We need to understand that the Bambula, that area called Jackson Square, was really Placa de Negre. Because that's where the Bambula, that's where we was hang out at when we were building that little wooden church that they now call St. Louis Cathedral. So I'm just dropping a few lines. I hope that y'all will have a good day.
Right on, brother. We appreciate that, man.
Bible is holding it up.
I like
for
that.
us.
I like that. And before you go, let me ask you this, brother. What would you say is the best way for our people to organize to better understand or learn what the truth of the heritage is for those of us here who are now politically designated as Black in New Orleans? What is the best way that they can that our people can organize? If you're there, and if you're not there, that's for all of us to contemplate, because what the brother was saying was important, and it was elements in our story that may not be widely known, and so if in fact that is the case, then how do we organize to make that information meaningful to instruct our work and behavior today would be the question. How do we organize?
And it's difficult, Brother Shaq, I think he's calling back, I hope so. It's difficult because what we've learned in school and what we learned in books have been lies, and what the brother's saying now is that what we think about Treme, is really Gertown and, Congo Square being Beauregard Square. And, thank you for showing us the truth. We need to understand how our history has been skewed and why.
That's right. So I would, again, the lines are still open, 504-260-9265. Again, 504-260-9265 for the solution line here on WBOK 1230 AM, Real Talk for Real Times. Family, we appreciate the way the Bibles have been calling, and this 4 to 6, 2 hours, Mama Fiyah, is rich.
Ooh, I'm liking it.
I like that too.
It. Yeah.
Shout out to Mama Kendra Joy over there on the other side of the glass, getting ready to come on next.
Yes. And I'm thankful to hear this wisdom from the Black man. And what we found out, Brother Shaq, is to resist trying to do anything too big as far as like overgeneralizing for our people, and to stay in our particular lane. And this Baba obviously had a love of jazz and a love of our story and history to make sure the truth comes out. And Brother Shaq has done the same thing for the Resolving Rape Culture book. He has dug into our story and our history to understand why we are caught up in this understanding of rape culture as a people, just for us, you know, because we want to say, well, you know, we get that from the white man, which is true, but why and how did it get embedded and internalized in us? So I love when our Babas are historians and they go back to teach us today, get our minds right.
That's right, Mama Fiyah.
Yeah.
And thank you for lifting, you know, me up, and also, you know, other black men into and resisting that notion that it's got to be dichotomous, so that if you're lifting up the black man, somehow we're down pressing the black woman, which is not,
or the opposite,
or the other side of
right,
it, which is when you're lifting up black women, you're saying, you know, something
that's what I do.
Negative. And I know that's what I was pointing it out, that we can, you know, resist the idea that we can't do both of these things at the same time, because it really are halves of the same whole. I mean, that we are so together, family, you know, inevitably so. And I'm not going to even say for better or for worse, but we're only together for better. I mean, that's what we do. We came here together, and we're in this condition together, and so we belong together. We're going to die together. You know, I mean, like, this is what it is. We're going to fight together. We're going to win together. We're going to stack together. We're going to build together. We're going to do those things. We're better together. That's right. And only when we've done the work, you know, individually, do we understand how best we work within the collective, and then resist the notion to hide. There is a culture in our community of hiding. And what I mean about hiding, I mean hiding like within the movement. Like, come on, Brother Shay. People, you know, they rah, but just, you know, while people are paying attention, it's not really authentic, it's not genuine. And it's not that they're bad people for it, but you know, just like as the brother was talking today about, you know, being motivated, something else he said that stuck with me. He said two things, and he said something about, you know, bettering himself. I mean, you know, I want to better myself, and I said, you know, I think better is a sibling of trying. I think better is a sibling of trying, because saying something that you want to do better and you want better and you're trying, those are two things that don't really have a real location. They're very, very arbitrary. They're very, very arbitrary. To say that, you know, I'm trying is not really indicating anything. It's just something you're saying and it sounds good, but it's not really it's not a location. The same way better isn't a location. Well, and so we use, I'm just saying, we use these terms. I got a little resistance to that. And it's fine to have resistance to it. I'm speaking with, you know, I'm speaking experientially, but I'm also speaking in terms of us using these things conceptually as ways to kind of hide where we're not really doing any of the work, or we're not really advancing anything, but we're just kind of paying it lip service. And it sounds good. It sounds like there is some movement happening, but really, it's just, you know, I'm finding my way. You know, that's a real thing. Yes. Finding your way is a real thing. Yeah. But the notion of simply doing better without qualifying where better is located, or trying without being very specific about what's happening is well, and I'm not saying that people have to disclose their personal business, but we know the spirit of that is what I'm talking more about, not just the audible, but the spirit of it. Yeah, and I think the spirit can be different in different ways. And so, you know, we are showing and displaying how a black man and a black woman can talk through something and resist in a different way. His thought, you know, I know that I'm better. I know that I'm better, and I'm the best I've ever been.
And though this is what I tell people when they say they want to better themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They got something right, because it's only themselves that can do it.
That's right.
Right? And then when you know better, you do better. We hear that, right? When you know better, we do better. Then your best can get better. Because when people say, I did my best, your best can also get better. And that helps us navigate to our highest self, which is our best highest self, right? And better means progress.
Mm-hmm.
Better means making progress. I don't have a problem with better, because that's a word that I use a lot of times to describe the progress.
Mm-hmm.
You're better at your relationship it's at work. You're better in your relationship at home. You're better with relationship with yourself. So I don't have a problem with better. Now trying, I get. Trying, I get, and I know.
Well, I'm just trying to get better.
Right?
Look at that.
But I'm just saying, you know, like let's understand this language is not ours.
Not
For one,
ours,
we got to
no.
do our best. Best is best, okay?
Yeah, it's best
We
as a
have-
cousin of better.
We have to do our best to articulate our progress,
Right.
and I think people are getting better, because
Right.
I think the young people and the people that I see are definitely making progress and getting better. So
And I like progress.
yeah,
I like
progress
progress.
is good because it helps you mark it out.
Yeah, and that's
able to-
the whole thing about it being a measurable thing, only for conversational pieces, only for conversation, to be able to say, you know, this is where I was, and here's what I've done, and in doing that, this is how I've moved through, and here I am.
Yes,
now.
being specific,
Right,
and I'm
here
better,
I am
and I'm
now.
better.
And then
yeah.
we can qualify the better in a way that doesn't just
Yeah.
you know lend itself to the spirit of improvement without any actual work. Because I'll give you an example of better. Like sometimes, you know, we had an example. We were talking about someone who was struggling with doing something very, very dangerous to themselves, that if they may do it,
Self-harm?
Yes, self-harm, but it could be self-harm in the form of some kind of an addiction, say, for example, that can be very, you know, dangerous to their health. And so if they are, you know, if they typically were doing it, you know, 5 times a day, and now they're doing it 3 times a day, they could say, or we could say, you're doing better. But the idea that they're doing it at all is still causing a tremendous amount of harm each and every time. And so that the better isn't a destination, that what we're looking
Right.
for is something to actually, you know, eradicate or resolve this particular thing so that you can stay alive. And that better, we can celebrate in the moment the progress if we can mark the progress. But it's
Yeah.
more to it than just simply the spirit of, well, you know, I'm going to do better. I
Yeah.
need to do, because people will say that, man, you know, I need to do better, and then go on and do what they did.
Right, and it's definitely missing the process that we've been talking
There we
about
go.
the whole time. Yeah, the process and the
process.
progress.
The process.
Yeah, we need a process to get to the progress.
Right
you
on.
know? Yeah, so I understand, and it's colloquial,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's semantics and all those things that English does,
Right.
the language does to us.
That's right.
And so resistance, Brother Shay.
Well, I think the overriding thing is the resistance of acknowledging your own humanity.
Yes.
First, and that it's okay that you are struggling. You know, to the degree I say, of course, we're struggling.
Yes.
Like,
Oh.
of course, you know, and to be able to look at that without the judgment part of it. And that's a tough thing to do because of the way they have lulled our analytical minds to sleep through the onslaught of media and just overwhelming us with information. You know, it's very difficult for us to examine a thing without having a judgment on it. And then once we have the judgment on it, there's that drive for some action again. You know what I'm saying? And so then the next thing that comes up is shame.
Yeah.
You know, and I heard the acronym. I didn't come up with it, but I heard it, and it certainly, you know, defined it well. The word shame. Had you heard shame as an acronym before?
No.
Yeah. So, shame as an acronym is should have already mastered everything. You know.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's
yeah,
heavy.
it's heavy with the word master in it.
Yep. That's why I said that. Should have already mastered everything.
Okay.
And that's not mine. I didn't come up with that, but I heard it and I thought, yeah. And of course, that master in it, in that language, we know the connection to the dominant culture with that. But the idea of the ways in which we as Black folks mimic the dominant culture that we've been socialized into as our standard of how we be, and the way we feel shame when, we don't have what we think we should have, or what someone said we should have, or definitely when we don't have what we need. And so there's a lot of shame, and a lot of that shame causes us to deflect and divert from, confronting the thing, because that's what I say. We will only confront a thing to the extent that we have a sense that we have the power to resolve it. That's the only way we're really going to tackle something. And so everything that we feel is outside of our reach or our realm of capacity, we dismiss it because we don't know what to do with it. So I'm talking about resisting that and saying, well, what is this thing? And being gentle enough with yourself to be able to have a healthy enough relationship with yourself to confront this thing.
Yeah, confront. A good way to confront things, Brother Shaq, is if you're willing to do the work, is journaling. And we talk about it all the time, but there's a lot of resistance to journaling. And I love the way that you say man, if your thoughts aren't valuable to you, how you break it down, Brother Shaq?
Well, I'm just saying, for brothers who are not accustomed to writing down things, and especially just full disclosure, man, like, those of us, from, interesting, New Orleans kind of upbringings and, street stuff and what have you, we know writing things down, you never want to write nothing down. You don't want to leave no trail. Like, you want to keep it all in your head, because you ain't going to tell on yourself if you're smart. But the idea, just being acquainted to, like, taking your thoughts and feelings and experiences and putting them down on paper. Like, if you don't value what you think and the things that come out of your mind and your heart, for you to write them down and then to look at them and reflect on them, how in the world could anyone else? How could people really do that? And of course, we know through the exercise of doing that for yourself, it also causes you to honor and respect and lift up other people's thoughts.
Yes.
In words and feelings, and in a way that you recognize, you see yourself in it, and recognize that, they are me. We are really, in fact, the same.
Yes, we are. I think journaling is like a counseling tool 101. And if you go to therapy, they're going to all ask you to get a journal and start to journal. But for us in particular, and when I say us, I'm talking about Black people, quote unquote, Black, Indigenous, Moorish, Israelite, whatever you want to call, original, whatever you want to call us, it's so important, because what this whole system of white supremacy, racism, and patriarchy has done is disconnected us from ourselves. Disconnected us from ourselves. That's why self-love is so important for us as a people.
Break that down.
It's because, we have been taught and collectivized, for one, and then we have been taught that we can't have any duty or sense of self. Because how could we work from sun up to sundown and have any sense of what it is that we need? Right? And so that has been beaten, whipped, raped, hung, lynched out of us. Beaten out of us. And we need to reconnect or reassociate with who we really are. With ourselves. And journaling is a good tool to be able to see your thoughts on paper.
That's right.
Not just have thoughts running around in your head without any organization, but actually put them down somewhere where you can see that I do have a self. I do have thoughts. I do have my own mind, and this is what it looks like. And sometimes it looks disorganized, and sometimes it looks sad and worried and anxious, and all these different things. But it's important for us to know where we are.
That's right.
And it's a good tool to just write down how we're feeling.
That's right.
Have a place to put that and make it sacred.
That's right. And it teaches you to honor those things.
Honor it. Honor yourself.
It's a great exercise, and they call writing this reflection.
Yes, we do.
Because it's you. So you're looking at you. You're reflecting on you. You're writing you. Plus the journaling tool, as we've talked about. There's a show we had, Mama Fiyah, that I don't know where it's not been too long. It might
Ain't
be
it
this
on
year.
YouTube?
I think it's on YouTube. It's called Documenting. Yeah, we did hear for the True Love Movement Hour one Saturday about the value of how documenting can really save your life. Because we're talking about it's a bridge to your sanity.
Yes, it is.
We got too much going on in our heads and in our hearts not to be able to have a place to put it and then organize it and then reflect on it at a much later
read
time.
It and see your progress.
Yeah, because you will see where you've come from. You know, you'll see that you got better.
And this whole thing, you know, I think about counseling, I think about coaching, the way we do it, Brother Shaq, that we're not doing the work for you. You can't just come to counseling once a week and think you're going to get better. Right. This is some work. This is just the support, the holding of the hand, the eye contact, the consistency. These are the things that we need in order to build up the bravery and courageousness it takes to heal ourselves.
It's a very loving thing.
Very loving.
It's a loving thing that is different than the way, you know, black folks have been cultured. That other black people can actually, you know, love them and lift them up and you know, work as a guide through a process that really much of the time looks messy and is messy.
And it's extremely uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. It's not neat and pretty.
And it's long.
And it's very lengthy. You know, but it'll save your life.
Yes, it will, and that's where we're heading. That's where we're heading as a people, y'all. Like, this is the wave. Let's go ahead on and do it because we're all navigating to free.
That's right.
And in order to navigate to free, we can't take all this baggage with us.
That's
you know,
right.
the things that have been placed on us with the heaviness of oppression. We just can't take it with us. Do the work. Do the work now.
That's right. And don't resist, family. I mean, the idea is in the resistance, and this is to go back, you know, with the brilliant circular minds of, you know, indigenous people to the planet, as the sister Sonia Maria was saying earlier, the contrary spirit, the idea of, you know, I'm just against everything. You know what I'm saying? I'm against everything. Like I don't want to do none of that. Just because somebody suggested it, no. You know, I'm not. That's not for me. That, you know, all of that kind of stuff. That's something that is that's a big indicator of powerlessness. You know, but we do have to honor the fact that there's a whole history of our people being coerced and manipulated. I mean, in order for us to be in this condition, someone really had to mess with and play with our minds.
Diabolical, Brother Shaq.
Diabolical. And so we are hurt people. We are very hurt people. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that we're hurt people, given the circumstances of what has happened to us, is a very normal human response. You know, I don't think I can say that enough, that where we are, you know, collectively, is a very normal response to what has happened to us. It's not abnormal at all. I mean, we have really been messed with. We are all survivors, people of color in America, and chiefly those of us who are politically designated as black, are all survivors, all of us. And since we are all survivors, then we have to, you know, honor and respect ourselves that way. And we also have to point out the violators and the violation.
Oh, come on.
That's part of the healing process.
We on to a whole nother subject, Brother Shaq.
Well, we're on the same subject. There's been a lot of resistance to that, and we know, but part of that, a lot of that, excuse me, is rooted in keeping this arrangement in place. That in order for us to continue to be in this condition, we've got to be complicit in it. That's something that we really don't talk about a whole lot. That for us to stay where we are and stay as we are, we have to be complicit. So the resistance that is affirmative resistance is the resisting of that. It is the resistance of holding this arrangement in place, being complicit in our own oppression, you know, and that won't happen until we discover and recover who we are in our humanity. That's the only way we can operate with dignity and respect. with each other, but chiefly with ourselves, is to get reacquainted with our humanity, and that is essentially the work that True Love Movement does.
If you want to know more information about True Love Movement, please feel free to go to our website, www.truelovemovement.com. The mission of True Love Movement is utilizing the skills of counseling, coaching, and the creation of creative arts and media to teach and uplift our people into rehumanization.
That's right.
Black people specifically.
That's right.
And so this has been nice, Brother Shaq.
It's been very nice, Mama Fiyah. It's been a fast 2 hours. You know, we used to talk about it as a fast hour. Now we done had a fast almost 2 hours. And with this little time left, I don't want you to resist the chance to talk about what you do know about with regard to a Manifest number 10. Manifest 10 weekend is coming up, family. A little more than a month away. You know, things are being
need you there.
finalized, and by next True Love Movement Tuesday, we'll have
it all. We have all the info. We've created events and everything for everything. So, Manifest has not been a weekend before.
This is the first.
The first weekend where we're going to be from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and provide so many beautiful things specifically for our community. And we are so excited to be collaborating with beautiful people in the community and present this to our people. And what Manifest are just Black women manifesting their dreams and the celebration of that. And it's okay. I think somebody asked, is everybody invited? I said, yes. If you come in, everybody can celebrate Black women, right? Yeah. It's okay.
That was someone outside of the community that asked that question.
Yeah, everybody can come celebrate Black women. They can buy from Black women. Absolutely. They can learn from Black women. They can, create with Black women, and let's do it.
Right on. And we have enough time, Mama Fiyah, if you would like to give a little bit of history of Will Manifest for some of our listeners who may be not so familiar with Will Manifest, because really by now, this is the 10th one. Will Manifest has long since been its own institution, you know what I'm saying? But it was, to talk a little bit about the dream and where it came from, and what happened.
I think Will Manifest kind of started as something that I wanted to experience. And what I wanted to experience is my sisters, my Black women, amazing, brilliant Black women coming together on one stage.
Right.
And so it started off as a kind of a concert or a celebration. And then we grew it, realizing that it had power.
Right.
We said, okay, if we have this power, then we're going to also add community workshops.
That's right.
We're going to add vendors where people can support Black women-owned businesses. And it just has blossomed from there, Brother Shaq, and we're ready. We're ready. Well, Manifest is ready for a whole weekend of things. And please stay tuned, because this weekend that we're talking about, Memorial Day weekend, from May 24th to May 26th, that's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, there's gonna be something that you want to do this weekend.
Absolutely.
If not all of it.
Absolutely.
Spend the weekend with us.
Spend the weekend with True Love Movement family. Again, this is the 10th one, so this isn't something we're experimenting with. It's just really expanded into something amazing, and I'm so looking forward to it.
And look, that brother talked about how Jazz Fest used to be a Black festival, and now it's Jazz Fest. That's not going to happen to Will Manifest.
All right.
Will Manifest will always be here in celebration of Black women, period.
That's right.
Because we're doing it for us. We do for self. We're not looking for no Coca-Cola sponsors, and we're not looking for no sponsors to come tell us how to run our festival.
That's correct.
This is for us, by us, in celebration of Black women.
And that means that this is the time where we all show and prove in ways that we authentically do value Black women. I mean, all of us. You know what I'm saying? There's been an increase over the years of Black men being present, but that same sort of stigma that, well, that's a woman's thing, that's a woman's event, in that the brothers aren't necessarily compelled.
We need the brothers to show up.
The brothers, this is for everyone, and to the extent that we're not compelled to be present, does kind of indicate where we are with Black women. And let's just be, I'm going to resist being political here, Mama Fiyah, that I know from experience, personal and otherwise, with regard to work. A great many Black men don't like black women. I mean,
Brother Shaq, you open up all kind of cans of worms. We gotta go in a minute.
Well, you know, I mean, it's a thought. I mean, I can certainly qualify it, but
we need to talk about it.
You know that, but I'm saying that level of resistance often affects the way that black men are able to engage with black women when they are, you know, leading, when they're in charge.
Come on, Brother Shaq, you tell the truth.
When they're influencing the outcomes. And that's when it really shows up that, you know, we in fact don't like, you know, black women. Of course, we don't like black women because we have been in America and we've been socialized not to like black women. Black women have been made to be the bane of existence for so many people. But the history of how, you know, enslaved African women and now those women who have the legacy of the enslaved African women and those who are politically designated as black has come about is fascinating. And it has happened through, as the brother said earlier, through legal ways, through political ways, as well as through religious ways. And, you know, my book, Resolving Rape Culture, does a deep, deep dive into that. So what I'm saying when I say that in very generalized, socialized cultural norms that, you know, black men don't like black women, that's what I'm speaking of. And so, yeah, we'll get into that and a whole lot more coming up on this next True Love Movement Tuesdays right here on WBOK 1230 and Real Talk for Real Time. So good to be back, Mama.
Oh, it feels great.
So good to be back. Shout out to Jazz over there on the boards. I mean, it's like
he's done a
old
great
times,
job,
man. You know, and shout out to all our callers and listeners and family on your way home. We give thanks for you, and we would like you to, you know, again, like the True Love Movement page on Facebook, share this show with people you respect, keep the conversation going because the thread doesn't die. Stay tuned for this show and other shows that you remember on the True Love Movement, our YouTube channel. And, you know, again, check out www.truelovemovement.com for more information. Stay tuned for the Purple video.
Purple video coming up.
Shout out to Seti King. Purple video on its way.
Real Wheel Productions is coming out soon, so y'all stay tuned for that and be ready for it. Man, I'm excited about that.
And stay tuned for On the Move with our good sister Kendra Joyce. She got some powerful people in the booth coming up for y'all. Y'all stay tuned for that. Keep it locked in. I'm Brother Shaq.
And Mama Fiyah.
The True Love Movement Tuesdays. Wholeness, family.
All right, that was nice, y'all. Thank y'all for joining us. We were so glad to be back.
Right on.
Getting out the booth, though. Brother Shaq, will this be on YouTube?
This will be on YouTube with no resistance. You heard me? Right on.